Today we're going to talk about a wonderful event coming up in October called Healing in Tribe. And we're going to talk about what it means to heal in tribe and to feel into, discuss, and share some of the beautiful ways in which we can do our inner work together with others in community. Just a quick overview of what this event in October is. It's happening October the 23rd to the 29th. And it's an opportunity to dive deep for a week into a container where we get to do our healing together with others. And what's really profound about this experience is that it's one of the very few spaces where we enter into a shared container, but also do our work with our brothers and sisters in separate containers, and then bringing that energy, bringing that experience back into a unified field. So it's like 3 retreats in one. We get a men's retreat, a women's retreat, and a tribal experience all in the same space. This is happening at New Eden, and New Eden has quite a special setup that allows us to actually run 2 concurrent spaces together while still feeling part of one whole field. So I'm super excited about this. It's an emergent process. It's an experiment in the sense that we haven't co-created an event with this constellation before. I'm thrilled about it. Not the entire team is here right now. I'm delighted to have the facilitators who are leading the sister spaces here on the call today. We also have Nemanja and Thomas and John joining us for the Brotherhood space. And yeah, so it's a big team and a big vision. Super excited to be able to share the next evolution of Heart IQ and circle work together with you later in October. So what I'd like to do first of all is just allow and give us all an opportunity to introduce ourselves. I will, as I'm talking, take the mic and just share a little bit about what I'm bringing to the space. So for those who don't know, my name is Christian. I'm the founder of Heart IQ, and my speciality is group dynamics and circle work. So I love to get people together and to do integrative healing. So integrative healing for me is the combination of embodiment, the personal opening of the heart to allow us to feel more, the relational components, and the collective transpersonal impact of being in circle together. I love doing shadow work. I love expanding into new emotional ranges and using the group to support that process rather than having to work hard and doing it on our own. I specialize in more of a somatic, and it's just an absolute blessing and privilege really to be able to do this work. And I stand for unity. This is something that I love to bring, is feeling like a group could come in that are strangers, that might have different opinions and thoughts about the world. And very quickly we can drop into a heart space where we just feel the embodied oneness, not as a concept, but as a lived experience. So I'm super excited to offer that transmission in this space. And in the retreat in October, I'm going to be part of the mixed tribal spaces, but I'm also going to be leading the men's brotherhood circles as well. So that's me. I don't know who wants to go next, but whoever feels they'd like to share, feel free.
I can go next. My name is Paulina, and yeah, I've been in the Heart IQ spaces since 2017, and my joy, my biggest joy in those spaces is bringing people into connection with their bodies and finding a way back to themselves, back to their own hearts, and reconnecting, supporting them and reconnecting to the home within. So what I really, really love to work with is anywhere around self-intimacy and self-connection. But also then bringing that beautiful gift of self-connection into connection with the tribe, with our families, with our partners, with our children. And Yeah, I think the beautiful element that I love to infuse into my spaces is the gift of music and voice. So I feel very passionate about empowering uh, humans of all colors and shapes and sizes to use their voices and bring the power um, through their voices and their presence. Yeah, I think that's that.
Beautiful. Yeah.
You want to go, Rachel? As I was starting to speak, I saw your mouth move. I feel super passionate about coming together and co-creating spaces, bringing different flavors together, and really leaning into embodying the togetherness already as we kind of come together to co-create a space of togetherness and oneness. And I also feel very passionate about working with women. I've been, with traveling, with journeying, with facilitating women's circles for the last 8 years. And when we talk about healing in tribe, I love how the individual healing journey and the one-on-one work that I predominantly focus on in my coaching practice and the circles, they mutually infuse and enrich each other. And so for me, that is such a beautiful gift that we get to lean into together. And the topics that I feel most passionate about is probably belonging and inclusion, both tribally and individually. So creating spaces for unheard voices, for integration. And the question that I like to ask is, how can I create a safe zone for all my parts, where I can allow all feelings and all needs to be heard and to exist in the space? And how can we support each other in creating that space together so that we can learn and get an imprint of like, oh, it is okay and safe for me to express my feelings and my needs are valid. And it's okay for me to be all of me in your presence. And so that to show up in the world from that foundation, from that ground where I can stand and speak from my fullness and contribute to the world from a place of like, oh, I can show up as all of me, all my flavors. And I think this is what the world desperately needs, is for us to show up in our full spectrum of all parts coming together individually in ourselves and as a collective coming together to show up for the world we want to create. Yeah, and in the space I will be facilitating and co-facilitating the sister circles. There I kind of I'll also bring in some embodiment work of self-connection and recentering to a more integrated sense of self. And definitely some elements of dance, just moving joy through the body. And also tools and really tweaks of accessing empowerment through the body directly.
Beautiful.
Thank you all for sharing so far. It's been lovely to get to know you again. I am Rachel, and in 2014, I co-founded Embodied Intimacy. And what Embodied Intimacy has been kind of like a school, an education in intimacy and relating, the one that we all actually really needed but didn't get in school, of like, how do we do this thing? And part of the gift of that space has been the trauma-informed somatic context that we've woven into relating from the bottom up rather than from the top down. And that context has also primarily been binary, in like women and men coming together to also simplify the way that we relate as beings back down into a more basic element, and then putting the pieces back together, but with consciousness and with the awareness that we now have as adults. Most of us built our relational programs as children when our brain was even still forming. So we're saying like, cool, let's go back, let's strip back all the layers of what we've done here as human beings and how we've been enculturated and raised. And then like, now how do we want to relate actually from this new set point? So I think that's the context that I've been operating from, that I really want to bring into this space. And alongside that, I now just launched a new group facilitator training called The Field that Christian is a part of, which is a really exciting new space for group facilitators to come to train in new ethics and training standards for what it means to be a transformational group facilitator today. And a lot of that focus is on the field, the invisible, sometimes visible space between us, where there is an emergent quality that we can attune to and listen to and be in dialogue and relationship with. And so I hope to bring all of those elements into this space, into both the women sisterhood circles and into our mixed gendered space.
Yay. Wonderful. Epic. And as I shared earlier, there are a few people that are not here. One thing I want to just name is part of the field that we're creating. We're going to have two wonderful guys, John and Thomas, who have created a concept called the sound field, where through instrumentation, musicality, voice, they will attune to the tribal vibration and space that we are moving in live, and complementing that with sound, with vibration, with voice, with music, so that the spaces and the places that we're going on the mat and the healing work and the processes that we're involved in are supported through the empowered connection to sound. So this is something that is new. It's something that we're introducing into Circle, that is an unknown mystery box, but we're super excited to be including this as well. Now, when we were just getting on the call, getting ready for this panel, we were talking about the name of this event being Healing in Tribe. And I think it's important that we start with defining what it means to heal, because sometimes those of us who hear that word can get in touch with that part that goes, oh, I must be broken or unhealthy or wounded in order to be called into an event about healing. So I'd love to first just open up the space around what each of us feel is, what is healing really for each of us. From my perspective, the healing is deeply connecting to our wholeness and arriving back in touch with our intrinsic goodness and meeting life from that place. So it's a place where, when hearts open, we naturally feel all of who we are, without diminishing or exiling or compromising or overriding any other parts. And then we can allow all that is us to come alive, to be celebrated and to be welcomed. And through that experience of being seen, witnessed, felt, in all of our emotional, energetic range, shame dissolves, unworthiness melts, fear is released, and we come back home. And to me, this is the healing work. It's not necessarily about looking at only our past and who did what to us, how and when, and doing only the therapy work to repair, even though it's included in that. It's not just about that. This is about evolution, growth, opening, expansion, and becoming all of who we can be. So that's kind of like my take on that, knowing that we can't do our healing alone. Others were involved in our disconnection and separation, and we're going to need others to repair and come back into connection. So I'm curious as well if either of you or any of you have, I'm just curious to hear, and especially with the fact that you are holding the sister and women's spaces, like what would you consider to be super important to you, to your heart, when working with women in this topic around healing and tribe?
Yeah, Christian, what I want to say first is what you've done is set us up for such an impossible task because your your definition was so beautiful and so complete of itself. It's really hard to add to that. So I'm sitting here like, what amazing thing can I say now that hasn't already been said? And there's almost nothing. Because I find healing to be the same as, and I would just say like remembering my wholeness, or like coming back into the perfection that is in existence all around me. And I think one of the big tasks for me to get there is to feel safe enough to be vulnerable again.
Mm-hmm.
This is a big piece of the puzzle for me. When I'm not safe enough to feel vulnerable, to be vulnerable enough, I'm defended. There is some part of me that is contracted, or that isn't in the goodness and the surrender and the opening up to life and love, and to allow myself to jump into the river and be taken. And so I find I just speak to this first step, which is like, how do we create the perfect conditions to be safe, to be brave, to be vulnerable again? And then in that is the doorway that opens into the possibility for something like healing or remembering my innate wholeness.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Mm.
Yeah, I love kind of the process of the adding on different facets of what healing is. And one thing that comes up for me is unhiding. So stepping or leaning into bringing more parts of me so that I don't use up my energy protecting and making sure that certain parts of me are not seen so that I can fit in, but instead that I can lean into the vulnerability that is required for the really courageous act of, wow, okay, this is a part of me that I have not yet revealed to maybe anyone, and I am ready to be seen in it. And from that place, it's like a movement from fitting in and kind of contorting myself into a shape where I believe, or I have a narrative that I can be loved, into true belonging, where I am inherently good and the way I am is inherently lovable.
Beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah, I think as a final add-on on this, I'm with the sentence that actually Sylvie spoke in her introduction, and that's around how can I be fully me in the presence of you? And that is definitely one of these, like, I feel core sentences that we keep bringing up in Heart IQ circles. And as someone who has definitely spent quite a bit of time, looking for that, what is wrong with me, and thinking that healing is that, finding that, if I identify that one thing that is wrong, then I'm going to be able to fix that. And then moving from that perspective to a sense of friendliness. We speak so much about self-love. It's such a big concept. And instead making it just very simple. How can I be a better friend to myself and to all my parts? And in that, how can I show up more fully in connection with you, my friend, outside, right? So there's something around that friendship with myself that then translates into a friendship with the world.
Oh, delightful. Yeah. For those who may not be familiar, a lot of the work we do is in circle, and one of the powerful parts of circle is the reflective capacity, where other people hold the parts in us that maybe we haven't fully integrated or opened to. So there's a law of group dynamics that says, what I love in you, I love in me, and what I don't love in you, I don't love in me. So the circle becomes a beautiful mirror for us to become more clear and to come into contact with some of the ranges or aspects of self that we want to look at deeper. And the circle also offers the opportunity to be supported by those others who already have maybe developed a deeper connection to these parts, to imprint, transmit, and show us how to access that for ourselves. So that we come into more unconditional love, really, of self and other. I thought it was important to name, because we've been talking about sisterhood, brotherhood, that this is 3 retreats in one. We talk about these containers that are going to be happening in this event. Maybe some of you are listening going, well, why? Why are we taking time out to be in these containers where men are doing their work with men and women with women? Is there intrinsic benefit to that? For what purpose does that serve? And I just want to speak from my side that over the years, because I've been doing this work for several years and have run predominantly mixed groups. And around 7 years ago, I started to work with this ingredient of what would happen if the men did their work together with men and then integrate that into the tribe. And something really, really special happened. What became obvious was that there are certain needs that men need from other men, or get met from other men, I should say, that are not available necessarily from their partner or from women. And they're searching to get those needs met from women. But actually what actually ends up happening is men doing their work together with men opens portals or doorways into their nervous system and into their heart. It creates a safety, in fact, that they can go to places that they wouldn't normally go to necessarily in a mixed group. And the downside of just doing men's work is they open to this space, and yet it's not realistic either in life to just sit with that. There's no integration into the mixed tribal field. So the beauty of having, for example, brothers doing the work with brothers is that, yes, they feel the safety to open, but then they get to meet that openness in life in the larger tribal field. And I don't want to presume what the benefits are for women to doing work together. I think I'm going to leave that to you guys to share with us. But I just wanted to speak to the brotherhood component, is that there's an exquisite frequency to togetherness, to unity with men doing this work together. And when they are feeling safe to come together as a brotherhood, there's something really, really exquisite about it, and healing on a whole nother level that simply isn't available just by having everybody in a mixed group for the whole period of time. So I'm curious to just hear as well, any thoughts you guys have around what are the benefits for women to be coming together in this process and practice? And what are you looking forward to experiencing in that space? What could come alive in that? What would be the perceived benefit, I would say, for women listening to being in this type of field?
I think for me, as I'm feeling into this, there's definitely a lot of recognition to what you, Christian, are speaking to, that there is a very specific quality that, or frequency, that women coming together creates. And I absolutely also resonate with this piece, and this was my personal experience of meeting other women and being met by women in ways that I could not have imagined. And I probably have searched in, quote unquote, the wrong places. But what actually comes up right now the most strongly for me is a sense of self-acceptance. There's something that I experience in women's spaces, which also has to do with this mirroring factor, where I feel that I am not just the only woman in the whole world with a certain set of challenges, issues, but that actually, if I look around the circle and I see the resonance of what I am bringing, there is such a deep sense of feeling felt, feeling met, feeling loved. And, you know, the bigness of, let's call it the feminine heart is, and its capacity to hold is just absolutely magnificent. And by being in these spaces, it's just, I am learning how to be
You just
more
froze there,
loving
Paulina.
towards myself and more accepting towards myself, because that is
Paulina,
what it's being.
Paulina, if you can just pause, you said, by being in these spaces, that was the sentence that just paused there. It just froze. If you could,
Oh, it froze.
if you can just, if you can pick it up from being in these spaces, that would, yeah.
Yeah. So I think I lost my thread now, but
Yeah, I get it.
yeah. Yeah, by being in these spaces and feeling felt and accepted by other women, I am just able to drop into a bigger self-love and acceptance for myself, because that's
Yeah.
what I'm being imprinted with. If I have never in my life, if something like the friendliness that I spoke to, or self-love has been a concept that has been pounded into my head by self-development industry, in those spaces, it becomes an experience.
Yeah.
It's not just a concept anymore, but it's actually an imprint.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would love to add to like this quality of nourishment that is exquisite, that I feel has such a different flavor, texture, quality in a women's space than it has in a mixed space. There is also an element of really meeting the woundings and the contractions that we carry as women in a society where our experience is distinct. There is a difference of how we're socialized and the experiences of wounding that we carry from growing up in the gender that we grow up in. So there is a unique opportunity to really meeting those limiting beliefs and those contractions and that withheld energy in relationship to other women. One, to actually feel each other and embrace the possibility to really bring our fire to the table as we meet other sisters. There's sometimes quite an impulse to kind of be very soft and gentle, and kind of like, okay, yes, is it okay for you? Well, I don't want to step on anyone's toes. And to cultivate an authentic meeting point also as we come together as sisters and as women, where we can bring our fire, we can bring our force, and we can meet also a limiting belief that I come across so often is like, I cannot be my full bigness, my full self in my full power next to a sister, because what if I will be judged, I will be envied, I will be excluded. And to really step into, this deep healing work of how can we be in our power together and build on each other's power rather than having to control others' bigness so that I don't feel small next to my sisters.
There's a lot of correlation there with the men's stuff too, around trusting brothers and bringing fire. It's good.
Yeah, so I'll speak to one more aspect. I think that will be complete, which is just like what I want to speak to here, which is really different. Like the opportunity in this space is different than going to a women's retreat that is just a women's retreat. Because one of the dynamics of what is going to open in this space is that we're going to come together in a mixed gendered circle, and there is going to be a particular impact just of that. There is going to be a nervous system shift. There is going to be different feelings that arise. There's going to be different parts that show up. And then as soon as we separate and the women are just with the women and the men are just with the men, there's going to be a whole new experience that will be connected to the experience of the togetherness. And that in and of itself will illuminate the work that we need to do together. Because for many women in many women's circles I've been in, when we're in mixed gendered spaces, is like as soon as that happened, women feel either more safe because the men aren't in the space, or they feel less safe because now they're surrounded by women, and that's actually where the work is for them. And so it's a fantastic opportunity to really meet what those, like, not only what those mixed gendered limitations are, but also the same gender. So by us being with the men and then just separating off and being with the women, a whole new set of information will come, and that will be the richness of the journey that we explore together. And I'm really excited for that.
Yeah, me too.
I want to speak into the tribal healing element one more time, and just to speak about like the opportunity here, who this would be for, because I think like what has been happening in our culture is this isolation and this aloneness, and I have to do it all on my own. I have to read my self-development books. I have to go to my private therapist. I have to go do my medicine journeys and everything happens behind closed doors. Everything is, I have to fix myself enough that I am at this level of perfection that no one will judge me or cancel me or call me out or unfriend me or reject me, so that like all these things, and then you just live alone your whole life, and you have no way to actually integrate back into a cultural or a society or a tribal context because the stakes are too high. And so I feel the potential, the possibility, the gift of this space is to say like, no, like, healing doesn't happen alone. It only happens when we're together. It is what all the ancient indigenous cultures knew and got right, and what kept them woven that we lost, which was we have to keep coming together to, and it doesn't even have to look like anything, like to just dance. Like we just need, and that's what used to happen. Like that's what happens is like the communities in a fallout. Okay, we get together and we dance for 3 days by the fire. And it's like, and like we need our bodies to enter those states and those frequencies and to feel one another's hearts. Like that is what we're doing together. There is almost no wrong that can ever come of a group of beings gathering together and dropping into their hearts and praying for a better world and a better moment, and, you know, for something new to happen. And so I just want to speak to that, because maybe there are people who have tribal context in their life and it's already something that's really accessible and easy, and maybe you don't. Maybe you're sitting at home alone right now and you haven't had a lot of social contact. And I want to say, like, you don't have to be perfect to come here. Like, this is where you come to be welcomed in the imperfection of being humanness, and to find love even there.
Yeah. Beautiful. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I think that really, it really drops something for me around, you know, feeling I consider myself a loner. So it's been quite a surprise for me in my life that I end up working in environment and in the context of circles and groups. But that's the piece, you know, that there is the programming and the stuff that I am with that makes me want to retreat from being with others. And then there is this magical, maybe not magical, maybe very human, biological thing that happens when I enter a group and I meet myself and I meet the pieces and the parts of myself that are coming up as I'm trying to move towards connection. And yeah, for someone who finds that hard, I am in these spaces that I continue to find my way into these spaces, because what I touch in those very rare, beautiful moments of deep dropped inness with my tribe, with my fellow humans, with my human animals around me, is just exquisite. And there's nothing like that. And it fills my heart. Yeah, fuels me for days and months to come after an experience like that. Yeah.
Yes. Me too. Me too. Hearing you both, there's this sentence that keeps popping up around group trauma. It's often not talked about. This idea that people are scared of doing their work in groups. They seek isolated or places where they do it alone because they don't really like the idea of being seen or being felt in a group, because potentially sometime in their life gone by, they've experienced group being very unsafe, maybe at school, maybe through their family dynamics. So they're being traumatized by groups of people, whether it's through violence, whether it's through humiliation. There's something that occurs. But the thing about group trauma is that it requires a group to heal it. So a lot of people, they seek out, healing individually when the wounding happened collectively, and there needs to be a collective meeting point. And that's why ultimately, even though it might be uncomfortable, the invitation is to have the courage to experience in a safe space a way to meet the parts that close down because of group. Because, like has been shared, there's an ecstasy, a homecoming, when we allow ourselves to feel the tribal connection that's been part of our DNA, really, ancestrally for millennia and millennia. It's just the normal. And we've been disconnected a little bit from that. Well, not just a little bit, I think a lot. And a piece that I believe is very, I'm going to give it a name, but unless you've experienced it, it doesn't really make that much sense. And that is this concept of tribal love. We talk about self-love, self-intimacy, this experience of being good with self and feeling really at ease and at peace and befriending ourselves. And then we got this relational love, this capacity to love another and to be in love and to appreciate friends, our partner, loved ones, pets. And yet there is an exquisite transpersonal love that many people have never really experienced, of when their heart opens to tribe and a need gets met when we open ourselves to tribal love, that we didn't even know we had that need. And we've been trying to get that need met through relationships and through our own personal spiritual practice. And unbeknownst to us, we will never feel completely met there. It will feel like something's just a little bit missing, and we'll think something's wrong. When in fact, what we need is tribe. We need to feel that regulating tribal impact of receiving love from a transpersonal space. And when we allow that into our hearts, there is a deeper rest, a deeper relaxation, a deeper yes. And it's like coming home. It's like, oh my God, this need runs so deep it has no name. It almost like, I can't name it, I can't speak to it. And it's almost difficult to even communicate it right now as a concept using words, because unless, as I said, you've had a dropped in experience of this, it's almost, words have no reality. And yet maybe as you're listening to this, you go, yeah, I resonate with the concept of that enough to be pulled towards longing for the experience. And that's what's waiting. That's the possibility that's here, waiting to be claimed.
Maybe it's tribal love, not tribal healing.
Maybe they're the same thing. Yeah. Anything else that feels, where there's an impulse to share?
Yeah, I would, I've been sitting with a question around whether or not to share this piece that feels like a really important piece of my journey of leaning into circle, and a really big piece of my healing journey through circle. And that has been to really feel and meet my programs of disempowerment. And whether those stem from individual wounding or from collective trauma, the pieces that I feel in my body. And it makes it hard to speak for me at times. And I feel it in my body both as a woman and as a person of color, navigating mainly white spaces. And so a really big piece for me has been to acknowledge and include the contractions and the unfelt pain that keep us from truly feeling oneness. That we can can easily step over or move past if we don't have a reminder in our own bodies of that pain. And for me personally, that has been like probably the most intense aspect of this journey of learning to speak up, of trusting my voice even if it shakes and cracks, and to ride the edges of my collapse and still stand and still express. And so this is for me where my activism lies, my commitment to humanity, and my spiritual practice of leaning into oneness and really creating spaces of feeling our interconnectedness. And at times it feels hard to bring in this aspect of what feels so important to me, because I often have a judgment that it's not important to others and it might be a burden to the space, or it's not something that everyone holds as a really integral part of the work. And it has been my practice of navigating myself in weaving what feels like weaving. And feels good to speak it.
Thank you so much, Sylvie. That was a holy moment. I just had waves of full body goosebumps watching you step in and stand up and claim and own your space. And it was just gorgeous. And I just so appreciate you right now for being the one to break the threshold of talking about something and actually just being it. Oh, thank you.
I feel very silent. I'm just hearing that and I've got to part this. I need to wrap this call up, but there's this part that just likes to just be in this moment of appreciation silently. Thank you, Sylvie.
Thank you.
Maybe we can just end in silence.
Yeah.
Maybe there doesn't.
Yes.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah. Yeah, no more words needed. Thank you, each of you, for being here to journey together.
Likewise.
Super excited. It's going to be amazing.
Same.
And to those listening, if you feel called